I was on a Caltrans committee. We identified the biggest impacts to our projects as far as budget, time, what are the things that really cause problems. And part of this team was, brainstorming these things. And it was unanimous amongst everybody there that utility conflicts were creating the biggest issues with projects. And then for the owner to get a project out to bid, utility issues were one of the biggest issues preventing these jobs to get to bid, because they're still trying to figure out utility issues, utility conflicts. For them, that's what they're dealing with. They're dealing with the biggest conflict that the construction industry faces on the civil side.
Welcome to Convos with Chris, inside the minds of infrastructure experts, where I dive deep with industry leaders redefining how we plan, design, build, and deliver future-proof infrastructure through AI and innovation. I'm your host, Chris Garafola, Head of Content at 4M. Hi everyone, Chris here, Head of Content at 4M, where your utility research and project planning begins. Joining me today is John Franich, EVP and GM of Joseph J. Albanese Company. John recently joined 4M as one of our new board of advisors, bringing over 40 years of experience and expertise in civil construction. John, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I know you could have been anywhere in the world, but you decided to be here with me today.
Great. Happy to be here. Excited to be here. A little bit of my background. I've been in the business 40 years, civil construction. I really love civil construction. I like building construction, but civil construction I find more exciting, kind of managing the variables of going below grade, and all the excitement that comes with learning to kind of navigate in the fog, because you don't have the information necessarily at your fingertips when you go below grade. You have what you have, and then you have to figure it out from there. I've worked for a couple large construction companies, public company, Granite Construction, and currently work for Joseph J. Albanese, a great family company started in 1955 in the Silicon Valley in Santa Clara, and super company, great loyal employees, third generation running the business now, and we do everything from demolition, grading, paving, structure excavation, structure concrete bridge, structure concrete building, site concrete. We have a group that just does excavations and things for other utility companies. We do quite a broad brush of things we do. We often have a bucket in the ground somewhere, quite a few buckets in the ground. So this 4M is kind of a good alignment for what we do. But it's been great. I love the business. I love the companies I've worked for. I think it's the best business there is. Builds the best memories. Yeah, it's great.
Awesome. What is it that you like most about being in this industry? Is it like being able to actually tangibly touch and see the things that you've worked on? I can imagine that's a pretty cool experience to actually see the impact that you're making.
Yeah, and I think one thing about the civil side, you benefit society, the quality of life, everybody in and around that you're building these projects for. Not that the buildings don't, but typically, bridges, dams, roadways, all these things really benefit the quality of life for the, where it's being done. And like you said, you see it, it'll be there long past when I'm gone. And it's really, for me, it's the excitement of getting it done, the challenge, being up at night thinking about how we're going to do it tomorrow if we don't have the plan quite figured out, which hopefully we usually do, but sometimes, you have to do an audible. And it's basically an energy builder, but it really makes you think, makes you be strategic. Like I said, learn to navigate without all the information that you would like to have. You still have to get the job done. You have to learn as you go on some things. So it's a very engaging business. I can't imagine anything that would be as exciting day to day. Not every day is exciting, but addressing the challenges and overcoming the challenges and getting the job done.
That's great. I mean, I obviously I'm not the expert here today. You're the expert, but I am a consumer of said infrastructure that is being built. We're all consumers at the end of the day of this infrastructure. So it's extremely important, obviously, and that's one of the reasons why I joined 4M is to be able to influence and make an impact with the infrastructure that not just that I consume, but my family, my daughter consumes. And so anything that can help accelerate these projects and make these projects more efficient, safer, faster, it benefits not just me, but everybody in America.
Right.
So that's really important and really cool, because I honestly, maybe I'm a little biased, but I feel like a lot of companies sell nice to have software, where I feel like Forum is more of a need to have. But we'll get into that a little bit later here in our discussion. John, I'm curious, looking back on your career, what would you say are one or two career milestones that you're really proud of? I mean, 40 years of experience, you've worked on some serious major projects. If you had to hang your hat on one or two of those, what would those milestones be?
Jobs where, the people thought was not maybe achievable, and getting the schedules done, achieving the success that we achieved from a time and money perspective. Some large airport projects, San Francisco Airport, Las Vegas Airport. Those were some jobs that were just super fast track, and that was probably the biggest issue. It's not that there were huge engineering challenges, as much the coordination and the management and the expectation of how much work you have to get done every day. Mm-hmm. Those jobs, I rest a lot of memories on those projects. And there's some large highway jobs where you're having to, get out of the ground with some bridges, and because you can't do anything until you get out of the ground. And then the challenge associated with the piles and the soil condition, the different site conditions, and getting it done, and pulling all the resources you possibly can, calling your competitors sometimes for, hey, here I am in this situation. And when it comes down to tough times, everybody in this industry tends to hold hands and help each other out, which is really, that's a great thing about this industry, is people will help you get the job built, even though you might beat them out of the job. Most of the times, if you have a relationship there, they're there to help you, and that's those things. I keep in my mind that makes this business so great and the memories so great. Mm-hmm. Is that sometimes it appears that it's not achievable, but it's amazing what you end up achieving.
Right. You kind of look back and probably think, how did we do that? But you did it. There's just a lot of variables and things that can go wrong, or sometimes do go wrong, but just keep on trucking, and you look back and it probably amazes you, looking back on, 40 years of experience, some of the things that you've accomplished with the jobs and the projects that you've worked on.
Yeah. The relationship's probably you have to have the relationship with your craft people and your management people. All have to be highly engaged and a high performing team. And it makes it fun too, right? When you're successful. And then the relationship with the client is so critical, making sure that there's a trust level there, and be willing to, share your vulnerability sometimes is important for them to recognize where you really are, and if they're willing to, get them to help you out, and vice versa. If they share their vulnerabilities with you, it may be a utility issue, right? Hey, we've got this utility in our way, which is often the case. And how are we going to deal with this? Some people like to kind of put their head in the sand, thinking, well, maybe this problem won't get me too big if I don't focus on it. Well, that's just the opposite what really happens. Needs a lot of focus, a lot of attention, a lot of partnerships and relationships to get through to get to the solutions.
Yeah, and being new to the industry, I'm learning more and more every day, and it's pretty incredible to know how many people are involved with these projects. It's very vast in terms of like the coordination, and like you said, it's really hard to just do a project on your own. Like, you're talking to competitors, the project owner, like there's just so many pieces to the puzzle, and I think that's what makes sometimes finding a solution to these challenges extra complex, because this industry isn't as simple as like an email software or something,
Right.
Like, this is a very complex industry, and you guys are dealing with the traveling public. There's a lot of safety and risk involved as well. So I can imagine when you're vetting a solution like 4M, these are all things that you think about. The stakes are a little bit higher, maybe a little bit more complex. And so diving into that a little bit more, what made you want to join the board of advisors at 4M Analytics? With your experience, you could have arguably been on the board for many construction tech companies. What drew you into 4M and our vision with what we're trying to do?
Well, been on a lot of projects, and one of the biggest conflicts that occur when it comes to time and money evolves around utility conflicts. You know, the owner, if it's a bid build job, the owner spends X number of dollars trying to, you know, understand what's in the ground, what might be in conflict with the planned improvements, and often they don't, you know, there's just not good information that is included into the drawings, and then you end up encountering something that you didn't expect, and the whole job stops, right? And time and money goes on, but the job's not moving. So it's kind of, you know, I don't like having a job cost more money, spend more time, unless you get a lot more for it. If you're building more highway, building more bridges, building more dam, well, that's fine. You're getting more for your money. But when you have these kind of issues, it just creates conflicts. Relationship between the owner and the contractor can be very stressed, which then distracts you from all the other good things that are going on the job. So I think with the 4M technology, having that intelligence from the start of the process with the owner, whatever agency owner it is, would have that intelligence to produce a better set of documents that the contractors can then bid on and build to, with, you know, a reduced amount of interference from unknown, you know, buried objects. Utilities being the number one problem. I mean, if you encounter rock, you can usually get around it. If you encounter water, you can deal with it, you know, soft ground, hard ground. But if you have a utility smack dab in the middle of your progress, you're stopped until that utility firm can do something about it, get a bypass in or something, if it's right in the throes of where you're supposed to be building. So it's really, really impactful. I was on a Caltrans committee. We are identifying the biggest impacts to our projects as far as budget, time, you know, what are the things that really cause problems. And part of this team was, you know, brainstorming these things, and it was unanimous amongst everybody there that utility conflicts were creating the biggest issues with projects. Once you know, start construction, and then for the owner to get a project out to bid, utility issues were one of the biggest issues preventing these jobs to get to bid, because they're still trying to figure out utility issues, utility conflicts, and you know, working with the utility companies to do whatever they can do to mitigate the problem. So, you know, for them, that's what they're dealing with. They're dealing with the biggest conflict that the construction industry faces on the civil side that I see. And that's what got me to say, yeah, this makes perfect sense to me. I see it as a great tool. And even on the design build side now, where the owners are putting that risk on the contractor now will have a better tool to make that determination and do a risk evaluation based on what it comes up through this technology.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And when you were talking about the Caltrans example, utilities being the number one conflict for projects, is this something that you feel like the industry has always been aware of, or have utilities kind of been on the back burner and not really had that much focus until recently?
No, I think they've always been there as a conflict. I think there's a lot of wishful thinking when people put drawings out that they've got it. Hey, we've addressed it. You know, if you're out in the pucker brush, it's not that big a deal, right? You might have somebody run a big gas line or fuel line or, you know, something. But when you're in any kind of metro area, any kind of developed area, you know, utilities are the one thing that's in the ground that Mother Nature didn't put there, and become something you can't really get your head around unless you have spent a tremendous amount of money I mean, I guess, you could spend a tremendous amount of money to go out and actually excavate and pothole where you think, but no one does that because it's too expensive. So it's been around. So they try to get this balance between what it costs to have the intelligence, and they spend enough, to have enough information to put the job out to bid, or the contractor thinks it's okay. There's, I don't see any excess risk here associated with utilities because they did a good job producing documents to reflect the utilities. But what's being done, there's no real super good technology, that can make that determination. There's all kinds of locating services, you can use up to certain elevations to find utilities. But generally, it's just not acceptable to make the determination that you're good to go, based on what's being done today. And it's really cost. People aren't going to spend what it really would take to go out and do that. And that's why this intelligence that 4M brings makes it reasonable.
Right.
Do it.
Right. And it sounds like time is super important, the project delivery being on time, on budget. And with 4M, I know we really double down on the speed to data. It seems like right now, being able to access this data, it can be expensive doing it the traditional ways. And that's one thing we're trying to build, basically like the Google Maps of the underground, that single source of truth, where it's the best place to start your utility research and project planning. Because John, what happens if you were to do this later on in the construction life cycle? Do you feel like this needs to be done at the very beginning? Because every decision is based on the last decision. So if your first decision is not based on reliable data, you're 10 decisions down the road and it's not based on truth. So that's the importance of having this reliable utility data as early as possible, so all of your decisions that you're making are compounding positively instead of negatively.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's the key. If the owner, or if it's a design build, but a contractor has responsibility for these, that's the first thing you would do. You may reroute some of the construction improvements based on what you find out from the utility information you get. If it's insurmountable, or the cost of relocating the utilities is that high, that decision gets made way up front. So you just, instead of having to deal with it, you just avoid it, right? But you need the intelligence to be able to do that. And having it in one-stop shop does make it efficient. It's all about due diligence. When you get in court, everybody asks you, how much due diligence did you do, right? And with reasonable due diligence now, is like you said, it's not really that comprehensive, and this would offer a pretty comprehensive recognition to what due diligence should look like, right, as a starter. Then if you have something in conflict or potential conflict after looking at that, then you could decide whether you want to pursue other due diligence. Maybe that's when you do some excavating yourself or other things. But I do agree that this is where you should start.
Great. Yeah, that's kind of like, at least for myself, when I need to navigate somewhere, I always start with Google Maps.
Yes.
I know before that it was MapQuest or printing out maps, or before that it was physical maps. But today it's like, if I'm driving somewhere, I start with Google Maps to see where I'm going. And I would love to see the industry start with, I'm going to start my utility research and project planning with 4M, just like we would start our navigation with Google Maps. It's like the logical first step in that process.
I also think that developers, an opportunity for developers that I've worked with, that are looking first level of pursuing a development. They try to get an idea what's out there, what's currently in the area, and without going to a bunch of different sources, They could use 4M to kind of see what infrastructure is already, in the area pretty quick and easily. And they can do some quick budgeting and to determine, hey, that we have to extend this to put this work. I mean, there's more than just the construction part of the equation here for 4M. I think it's got other opportunities for people that are out in the development business.
Mm-hmm.
I think a great tool for them too.
When it comes to project delivery, John, you've been in the trenches. I'm curious, what are some of the biggest hurdles you've faced specifically with ensuring field teams had everything they need to be successful? What have you seen in your experience as the biggest challenges and hurdles with ensuring those field teams have reliable information and that they're set up for success?
Well, it all starts with a plan. That plan then dictates what resources you need to get the job done. And, then you want to make sure you're providing a safe work environment. But, it starts with the plan. That's based on how much information or intelligence you have about what you're going to do and how predictable what your plan is, right? Is this pretty rock solid plan? So predictability of the plan, I think, is where things get sideways, where people are making assumptions in the plan. Maybe that's where the office is throwing out some things to the field. I haven't experienced a lot of that. I'm trying to make sure the office and the field are in sync, but I know it does happen. So the office is not completely, or the team is not completely understanding what the challenges are, what potential conflicts there are. They're not doing a risk assessment before they put their plan together. They may be planning for things that aren't really that achievable. And that's what really gets the craft of the construction teams on the field, superintendents on, really frustrated when they're all set to go do something and then something pops up that was not anticipated in the plan. That's why you want the plan be developed by both the field and the project management team collectively to talk about all those potential variables that could affect the plan. And then what is your contingency to that? And what would you do? What's your plan B on this situation? And get all that sorted out. Then make sure you got the right resources, people, trained people, right equipment, all the things you need to do to execute the plan. So the biggest issue that comes up is you think you got a great plan, everybody's on board, and you get out there and then you encounter something that was not expected,
mm-hmm.
right? Mm-hmm. And that's when everything goes awry. That's when progress stops, costs continue, time continues, and thing gets, everybody gets very stressed and agitated and blaming each other and all that kind of stuff, right? So anything that adds to the predictability or the probability that the plan is, solid enough, the likelihood of things changing would not be that great. It just produces, a much more successful project. And I think that's where people fall short is proper planning, right? Anticipation of potential variables and what we would do if we encounter this. It's potential that we're going to encounter this situation. What are we going to do about it if we do? And have that baked into the plan so that everybody's aware that, we're going to do everything we can to mitigate, because we've anticipated this. We already have some things in play, solutions in hand to address these unexpected. Maybe they wouldn't be totally unexpected at that point because you kind of planned for them. So it's really the planning process that I see where people get awry, and the field versus let's call the office maybe didn't have the same view because the plan wasn't put together collectively.
Got you. And do you think that 4M can help have higher confidence in that plan that is put together in the early stages of construction?
Yes, I do. I think that's a huge tool to help anticipate what you may encounter and then have a solution at hand, right? And like I said, it may be that you need to take another direction on the project for a while until the solution gets resolved, once you identify that you can't continue in this direction early on, you can come up with hopefully another direction, keep the progress of the job moving. But most of my experience with utility conflicts, people are just digging along, they think they're just cruising along, and all of a sudden, bang, where'd this come from? Gas line, sewer line, and the invert, is right in the path of the improvement, construction, or whatever. It's rarely, you may pothole out in front a little bit, but and find it there because it's already there, but it's the one that no one ever knew existed, or the one that really throw the plan off.
John, is there a specific project that you can think of where that happened, or it really impacted the project, an unknown utility, whether it was a strike or you found a utility and it ended up causing the project to be delayed for X amount of time? Was there one project in particular where that stood out to you?
Well, there's so many that I can't quite sort any one out, but
Sure.
I know that I had a light rail project in San Jose years ago, First Street, and the utilities were supposed to be in a certain location, and it looked like they, were in some of the, manholes and vaults and what have you, but actually they'd skewed right into the path of the improvements for the light rail. And, if someone had done a better job and sorting things out, they could have figured out that this was occurring or going to occur. So the whole job came to a screeching halt. And you're not going to move the rail line, right? So, it just delayed the project till things got moved, and some of it was old techite lines, which was spun glass, made zero, so it was very, fragile at that point in time. There was all kinds of consequences by not knowing right where this line was prior to putting the job out to bid.
Wow. And so are we talking like months of delays and millions of dollars of extra costs, like ballpark?
Yeah, millions of dollars. I don't know if it was months, but it was at least a month on a project, this particular one. But we've had gas lines. Actually, on the job now, the gas line's in the way, and we're just trying to figure out what the solution is, right? The utility company is not really going to do anything about it, so we're having to go back and do some redesign on the improvement. It requires right away adjustments and all kinds of things.
How would have a solution like 4M, like having reliable utility data quicker, early?
That would have been something that the owner would have been able to incorporate into the design, either by getting the utility company way in advance, right, and get them to address this utility line, get it moved, relocated, whatever, that would have been the best first step in the process. And if we had the data and saw it, on the plan, we could have maybe addressed it with the owner prior to starting the construction. But at that point in time, then the owners should have, they should have the superior knowledge, of things.
Does this surprise you? Does it seem like owners actually usually don't have the best knowledge of what's on?
Yeah, like I said, their due diligence kind of goes to a certain point. Same thing applies to geotechnical, borings, determining what kind of soils you're dealing with for excavation or, piles, whatever. Seems that they have a certain threshold that they'll go to, and then that's it, right? I mean, I deal with private developers on stuff, and sometimes they'll have 2 or 3 borings for a site that you would think, man, you should have got 10. What you're going to spend now addressing this material that was not revealed by your 2 or 3 borings, is going to be hundreds of times what it costs, thousands of times what it costs to do additional borings and exploratory work.
Now, why is that? Because to your point, it costs so much more.
Yeah, well, it's everything is a lot of stuff is bid. You get 3 or 4 geotechs come to a developer, come to us and say, "Hey, I think 3 borings will give you a representation of what you need," because they want to get in on the job. And in reality, if it would probably be 8 to 10 borings to really tell you what you got.
Mm.
And the contractor often in the end of that, they throw the job off if you do it right, you usually get paid for that differing site condition, which usually turns into where there's rock when there wasn't supposed to be, or there was supposed to be rock and it's muddy slush, or it's just different than what you figured, right?
Right.
And there's time and money associated with that. But a contractor would rather have it go per plan right out of the box. They'd rather say, "Hey, I figured I'll be out here for 100 days, 200 days," and contractors don't want these impacts because it takes a lot of energy to get compensated equitably for these things. It ties up your resources. You're better off going through these jobs without issue, right, and moving on to the next job. And so I think 4M used by the owner initially in the design process would put projects out that allow that to happen. So job wouldn't take as long, job wouldn't cost as much.
Right.
Now you may spend a hair more than you're spending now, but most of you aren't doing enough due diligence now anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe not spending more because the technology is such that it's not that kind of labor-intensive due diligence, right?
Right. It makes me think that the civil construction industry in general it's said to be this not evolve as quickly as other industries in terms of adopting new technologies. We've seen other industries, the productivity curve go way up, whereas the construction industry has kind of been a laggard and remained pretty steady. Why do you think that is? Why do you think this industry is slower to adapt and evolve?
Well, I think it has evolved quite a bit. It could be more, but just what's come out of GPS, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is huge. Total station. From the estimating process, the software. There has been a lot of innovation and things in the industry. Could there be more? I totally agree. There could be more, and at the pace, I think it's contracting. It's really, you got to show and prove to me that this is the way to go, because the risk associated with relying on something that may not produce the accuracy or sort is hugely consequential. So, but once things are proven, and maybe that's right. Contractors, I believe, they need certainty. They want certainty. They don't always get certainty, but they want as much certainty as they can. And sometimes new technology, you have to be willing to take some risks on using it to see if it is going to satisfy what you need. And eventually it does. In most cases, like when I look at GPS. GPS is one of the biggest improvements to the civil construction, as far as from figuring out what you got before you start, figuring out where you want to, what you're going to build to, controlling all that, integrated into the machines that are grading the sites, all integrated into the equipment, so it controls the grade. So that's a lot of technology,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of technology has made a huge difference in this industry. Mm-hmm. I think there's more to be done. I think 4M's a great added piece to that. It doesn't build the work. I'd say a lot of technology has gone in to help build the work in the field, bid the work, measuring what you're going to go do, right? But you got to measure everything so you can price it out, so you can bid it, and so forth. There's a lot of technology that's gone into that, but there's still a lot of opportunity. And I think with 4M, I think the first opportunity is with the clients. And I think the contractors are the ones that are going to have to convince the clients the owners that they need to do this by just looking, hey, look at the last decade of projects that were in conflict, and look at the budget overrun, the time overruns, all associated with utilities,
Right.
and get the owners to step up and say, yeah, we don't want to do that anymore. We want these jobs done on time and for our budget. And the only way we do that, we have to remove the conflicts in these contracts, the
Right.
different site conditions and all the things that, and utility conflicts, and all the things that slow down a project.
Right.
So I think that's the first opportunity. Then the contractor then comes through, trust and verify. I trust you got it right, Mr. Owner, but I'm
Right.
going to do verification myself.
Right.
So I'm going to utilize the tool to double check, ensure before I go out and, get the biggest excavator west of the Mississippi and start digging here, that we're all good to go. Right?
Exactly. And I think that's, 4M, we're not saying we are truth. At the end of the day, we're not boots on the ground and verifying that there's a pipe there, but it's helping drive efficiency where it's like, these are where you should start looking. This is where you can enable and empower your field team to go there. It's a good starting place, and you should start here. And you did mention that there are other technologies and innovations that have happened in this industry, and it has evolved. That said, it's different parts of the construction life cycle. When a shovel hits the ground, maybe closer to construction. Do you feel like the early stages of construction in that construction life cycle are the most ripe for disruption, where new technologies like AI and what 4M Analytics offers can help the most?
I do. I think that's the first biggest opportunity to start with.
Mm-hmm.
And I think from there, we'll learn other opportunities to utilize it. But that would be where I would think that, the biggest bang for the buck is going to come from mitigating conflicts, and this intelligence can help, give predictability, what's going to happen out there, and reduce delays and costs.
Right. How would you describe 4M to your network and your partners? How would you describe our value to the decision makers who would get a solution like 4M?
Well, I would look at what the client's doing. If they're out in the middle of nowhere, they're probably not a high potential user. But anybody who's doing work in existing infrastructure environment, right? There's existing infrastructure. I would say, county, cities, the state, the Fed, everybody, I think should be using 4M on certain projects that are where existing infrastructure is in place, and they should use it as a tool as part of their due diligence to determine, make the best, assessment of what's existing there. So when they go into design or into construction, they have all the intelligence available to them.
Mm-hmm.
They're not flying in the total dark, right? And
Right.
That's what I think people do. They say, well, I've done enough now. I've heard this from certain engineers. Well, we've done what we've done, and we'll just have to figure it out and fight it out in the field. And the field guys go, no, I can't take any more of that, and that's a bit of the attitude, right? Well, we've done enough investigation, we've done our due diligence, so it's going to bid. And I've been on with contractors saying, no, based on what we're seeing, you're not ready to go to bid. We see stuff on the surface that's a problem, much less what's underground, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they said, we got to get it out to bid. It's been a long time coming. We're going to put it out to bid, and we'll just have to figure it out in the field. That's just a formula for disaster, but that attitude still exists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How do you see the future with technology like 4M? I mean, if you had a magic wand, what would be like the perfect state in 5, 10, 15 years?
I think there needs to be a almost like a written due diligence expectation that these jobs need to go through this certain process before they're going to get funding, before they're going to get insurance, before anybody's going to bless these things through, that you've achieved a certain amount of due diligence to avoid these, that you've reduced the risk of a conflict. Okay. And in so doing, that means you've used like 4M, you've verified elevation with GPS, you've done all these things. And once you've done all those things, now the product can go to the next level. I think that's down the road. It's going to be how project selection will be done, because there's only so much funding for projects. And why would you go fund a project that is riddled with issues? Why wouldn't you deal with those issues and get that project under construction rather than spend all your funding dealing with the conflict you encountered because you should never put the job to bid?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And hopefully we get there. And hopefully 4M is that, you need to have 4M to be part of that due diligence process. It's just
that's what I see. That's what I see.
Awesome. Well, John, to wrap things up, I'd love if you could describe 4M's utility AI in one word. How would you describe 4M's utility AI mapping and analytic solution that we have?
Well, I mean, I've tried several single words, but the one is just, intelligence. It's intelligence. And that to me is what you need. It's what everybody wants. But when you put a job out to bid or you bid a job, there's only so much time and resources dedicated to gathering intelligence before you go. We bid jobs 2:00 on a Tuesday, wishing we had more intelligence, right? Wishing we had more information. But hey, we got to bid this job at 2:00 on Tuesday. So we got to run with what we got, right? Mm-hmm. So it'd be nice to have more intelligence there. The owner's got a job they want to put out. Maybe their funding is going to go away. Maybe there's pressure politically, whatever. They're going to put that job out. They want more intelligence to get it done. But right now, they got what they got. They go with what they got. And often it's not nearly adequate, especially when you go below grade. Right? So intelligence just rings in my head. It's what it is. It's intelligence, right? It's just knowing. I thought a bunch of other words too, but it kind of distilled down to, hey, what do you want when you go bid a job? What do you want when you go design a job? You want the highest level, superior knowledge. Maybe it's superior knowledge. Maybe it is. 2 words: superior knowledge, intelligence. Yeah, I think both those fit into the equation for 4M.
No, I love that. And I was reading something. It might have been from Albert Einstein, a quote from him, and he said, "What's the optimal or the highest form of intelligence?" And it went from like smart, intelligent, genius. The last one was simple. That was the highest form of intelligence, was just simple. And I love what you said about intelligence. Everybody's looking for the intelligence. And I think also they want it to be simple. Like intelligence is simple. It's easy to access. It's reliable.
Simple intelligence.
Yeah. No, I love that. You got to be on the marketing team, John, too. Like this is something that that's something that could be like a tagline, like utility intelligence or 4M intelligence. That's great. Well, thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you.